populated on your screen. So, well, that's good to know that 73% of the people know about it, that what all option we have to host Orchestrator on the on-prem infrastructure, your private cloud, your public cloud, or it can be consumed as a service, which is available from UiPath and which is called as a SaaS offering. Well, that's good to know. Those are the people have a limited knowledge. No offense. The agenda for today is give you perspective of all three options which we have to host Orchestrator. Well, can we, Ankit, go to the next slide and just publish the agenda for everyone benefit? Excellent. Well, we are going to give you a quick snip preview, a very short tour about the feature capability of Orchestrator. It's just a refresher. You may be knowing the features which are there, but in benefit of interest for everyone who is there on this webinar, they should know about some key features which are the key reason why you should have Orchestrator in your organization. And that's what I would like to invite Ankit to cover. Over to you, Ankit.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Sudhir.
Hello.
So let's start what we have in the orchestrator. So I'll try to cover first a quick feature tour for you that, okay, we have these features in the orchestrator, and then we'll try to move on the deployment options. What are the options available and what we can do with these options? Like we can go with single node, we can go with multi-node, we can go for high availability, disaster recovery and all. These kind of things I'll try to cover. Then we'll try to cover some new features which we got in 19.10 and 20.4. And we'll try to discuss about the roadmap as well, which is maybe coming in 20.10 or in 21.4. So which is the future, I would say. And then it will be open to you. You can ask the questions, whatever you have. It will be good if you can ask within this, like in the orchestrator itself. But if you have something else, then we can take up as well. But depending upon the time, we'll take a decision on that. So let's move. So here you go. It's a very quick tour about the orchestrator. Few things which we'll like to discuss. So now from 19.10, maybe you're already aware, we have divided all the menus, like you can see on the left-hand side, we have divided into multiple categories like monitoring, automation, actions, management. So depending upon the task you want to perform, we have divided this into a group so that it will not be a very long menu for you. You can just expand the menu which you want to work, and then you can work on this. So as you already know, Orchestrator is designed so you can deploy, manage, monitor, and optimize your entire UiPath automation lifecycle securely from one central location. All Orchestrator capabilities are available in this web interface. Also, you have the facility to use the Orchestrator APIs. These are REST APIs, so you can call it from any language. Or if you want to test, we have a Swagger available from where you can test those applications, those APIs. As already mentioned, you can manage all your automation. We have some settings available. You can see the audits. You can see your licensing. What are the licenses you have? What are the licenses you have consumed? You can enable the webhooks. You can configure the credential stores. So now from 19.10, you can configure your credential stores like CyberArk or Azure Vault, something like that on the tenant basis. Before to 19.10, it was on the instance label, but now it is on the tenant label. A few things like Orchestrator is available in 12 languages now. I don't have the list, so please don't ask. But you can find it on our site. So few features. There are a lot of many more features, but we try to cover up here the main features which are basically used each and every day. Like there is a 80-20 rule, so 20% of the features are used 80%. So we try to cover those 20% features only today. But it's not end of the word. We have a lot more features in the orchestrator. So please don't think that these are the only features. So the first feature I like to discuss here is the folder and tenants. So as you already aware, the orchestrator is capable to define multiple tenants within the instance, so that if you want to segregate your data, for an example, if you have two departments like HR or finance, so you can divide the data on the basis of tenants. But again, there are some requirements where you cannot divide each and everything just by the tenants. So for an example, if you have finance process, so we have two major departments in finance. One is account receivable, one is account payable, and they both want to separate their data. So you can use the folders within the tenant, by which you can separate the data. It's again logical separation. There is no database separation, only the logical separation within the database. Here you can divide your data within the folders. You can define the users within the folders, and only the users which are part of that particular folder can see that particular data. Be it processes, logs, everything is depend on the folders in that case. Next, I would like to talk about users as role. So you can create the users, standalone users, I would say, in the orchestrator, or you can use the Active Directory to define the user. So we have a very good integration with the Active Directory. You can define like, you can create this AD security group, or I would say AD security group as we used to call it. And you can define like one group for administrator, one group for robots, one group for users, business users, and then you can manually configure in the orchestrator. As soon as you add any user into that particular group, that particular user will be available within the orchestrator. You can define the roles on the basis of that particular AD group, and as soon as he is part of that particular AD group, he will get that particular role. The next feature is machines and robots. So previously you have to define machines for each and every robot or the users, but now you can define machine templates, and you can provision your robots automatically. You do not need to do anything. Just add the user into the AD group and it will be automatically provisioned into the orchestrator as soon as you start logging into it. Next is the packages and libraries. There are two things. Both are almost similar, but few difference in terms of usability. Packages are basically which will be converted into the processes. And now there is a feature where you can like automatically download into the attended robots as well. And the another thing is libraries. Libraries are basically called, if you are familiar with the software, what kind of DLLs or the APIs you can call within your packages or within your processes. For an example, UiPath full entire architecture is depending upon the packages and libraries. Whenever you are using any activity, that particular activity is associated with any particular library or the package. In the same way, you can define your own libraries where you can, like within the libraries, you can create your reusable components. For an example, you have SAP Logon or Concur Login, or any kind of thing which you think, okay, it's very reusable in within the organization, so you can define it as a library. So we'll take the questions in the end of the session, but if you have any questions, you can type into the chat window. We'll try to answer whenever I'm speaking. So next is the automation part. So again, four things here. So first is the processes. Processes are basically uh, the thing which you run on your robots. So processes are based on the packages, whatever packages you are deploying to the orchestrator or basically publishing to the orchestrator, you can convert those packages into the processes, and you can define which version of the package you want to use in that particular process. You want to downgrade, you can downgrade. You want to upgrade, you can upgrade. You want to use latest feature or the feature or the version which you have released 2 months back, you can define it from the orchestrator, and the robots will start using that particular version only. Next thing I'll talk about triggers. This is a new introduction into 19.10. Previously, they were used to call the schedules, but now these are called triggers because we have introduced a very good functionality here. Uh, if you remember, if you have worked on the schedules, then at that time you were able to define your schedules on the basis of time only. But now there is one more functionality which used to call it as queue, where you can define your automations on the basis of queue items. Whenever you have any queue item in a particular queue, then orchestrator can call a particular process. Okay, whenever you get the item in this queue, start this automation, so that you will not wasting your time just to checking whether we have something in the queue or not. Previously, it was not possible, and you were forced to use the time schedule, and every time you just run the word just to check whether you have something in the queue or not. But now it's not necessary. The robot is not wasting the time. Orchestrator is managing. So again, it's a good ROI for the robots. The next thing is queue, as I already mentioned. So queue is basically used to store the data which you want to process from your automations. You can add the queue items from APIs, or you can call like dispatcher performer method, and the dispatcher is adding the data to the queue, and you are executing it from the performer. Or you can use orchestrator APIs, which can be called from other applications, and they are adding the data to the queue. A very good example of it is like Abby. If you are using Abby Distributed can directly ingest the data into the orchestrator queue. There's a very good feature got introduced in 19.10. We call it SLA. If you have any process which has SLAs, so you can define that SLAs on the queue. And whenever that particular SLA is exceeding, then orchestrator can notify you, okay, that particular queue item is breaching the SLA. You can define that kind of notifications in the orchestrator now. Next thing is assets. So as the name mentioned, asset is nothing but I would say a storage for you, where you can store your like username, passwords, or maybe file path, or any setting which you want to store dynamically. I would say dynamically, because you can change it without changing anything in your process. So that now there is a very good feature which is I will cover in 19.10 or 20.4 features. So for now, I'll just stop speaking on this. There's a very good feature got introduced in 20.4. We call it storage buckets. Now, previously there was a very good use case where you have to share the folder with the business, and they used to keep put the file into that particular folder. But for that, you have to manage a lot of permissions, allocations to the business users. And sometimes somebody says, okay, I'm not able to access that particular folder or like that. But now you can use that functionality within the orchestrator. You can give them access to the orchestrator. Ideally, business users have that access to have a look on the process. They can use this feature and they can upload their data into the storage buckets. And in the backend, you can use Azure, Mini.io, or AWS. So data will be stored on AWS or Azure, but it can be retrieved directly from the robots. Now come to the monitoring. So monitoring is basically, first of all, this is not the analytics. This is just the monitoring. So we keep only 24 hour of data. Last 24-hour data you will be available in the monitoring, be it log, robots, or anything. But that doesn't mean we don't have that data in the database or the Elasticsearch or whatever thing you are using to store your logs. 24 hours, when I am saying, that is only available for the orchestrator, because orchestrator shows only 24 hours of data. It shows you the robots, jobs, queue items, uh, the necessary information basically for the COE to see, okay, what is going on our orchestrator. Udit, before, am I going too fast or too slow?
We are good, Ankit.
Okay. So now let's talk about the deployment option, which is the topic for today, basically. So maybe it's a good time to start the new poll. So we have 4 deployment options. First one is the on-premise or the private cloud. So I would say or I would say and. On-premise is basically when you have your data centers and servers where you are installing everything. And private clouds like Azure Stack, you can install Azure things within your data center and then using it. The second option is public clouds. And we have 2 options again, IaaS and PaaS here. You can use infrastructure as a service, or you can use platform as a service. So for that, you can use AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, or any other cloud, but whatever you want to use, you can use. The third option is automation cloud. We used to call it SaaS, Why? Because we are giving you directly the orchestrator. You don't need to worry about the infrastructure, upgrade, anything. You do not be worried. Everything will be covered by the UiPath. All the infrastructure needed, upgrades, patching, security, everything will be managed by the UiPath in the SaaS offering. The last option will be the deployment scenarios, like you want to install it standalone if you are going with public cloud. So deployment scenarios are basically only for the first two options, on-premise and private cloud and public cloud, because automation cloud is basically managed by the UiPath, and we don't use standalone thing. We only use the multi-node and disaster recovery framework. So let's talk about, again, now everybody is saying cloud first, but when you come to UiPath, we say cloud first, but that doesn't mean that the cloud only. You can install it on your premises. So three options available, as we discussed already: UiPath Automation Cloud, third-party clouds, or the private clouds. But for the users, it will be a smooth and the same experience whether you use automation cloud, third-party cloud, or private cloud. For the user, for the end user, basically, it will be the same orchestrator experience. There will be no change in the features or anything, basically. Let's talk about, this is the, I would say, high-level design. How if you want to use UiPath cloud platform. Before, I think it's a time for the next poll. You should.
Yeah, okay.
I take a pause for now. You to answer this.
Vibhor, I'm not able to see the polls. Can I know the option?
Maybe you
Guys,
just try in the tray. There should be something on the top or the
or
bottom
maybe in another
from the
window.
Zoom.
Option is UiPath Automation Cloud is SaaS offering, PaaS offering, or PaaS offering.
Well,
No, actually, I joined from browser, directly from the browser I joined, but I can't see any poll option. I
okay,
can see
so
participants, share
I'll read
screen.
out the question for you. You can answer now.
Yeah, I
UiPath
already given that.
Automation Cloud is SaaS offering, PaaS offering, or IaaS offering?
Yeah, I already mentioned in the chart.
Okay, okay.
Because I'm just waiting for the poll actually. I thought like it will be under screen, but just I say. No.
Yeah, Ankit, we can go ahead now.
Yeah, so we have the results. So
Yes.
79% people answered SaaS offering, 3% PaaS offering, and 18% IaaS offering. So yes, I'll go with the majority. SaaS offering is the right answer here, because UiPath is not providing any infrastructure as a service to anybody, and as well as PaaS offering. For PaaS offering is basically when you use Azure, you can use this option, but for not from the UiPath Automation Cloud. So let's move it. So this is the basic architecture of the UiPath Cloud Automation, where if you want to use orchestrator from the UiPath Cloud. So here we have the cloud portal. It is hosted at 3 locations now, for now at least. One is the Europe, another one is America, and one is not shown here, that is Japan. And we have our community orchestrator in Europe. So once you want to subscribe to our cloud, we create a tenant for your company. So like this, company 1, company 2, company N. And then within your tenant, you can create multiple tenants depending upon your requirement. This will be same as you do it in your on-premise cloud, on-premise installation. So you can create your own tenant, and after the tenants, you can have multiple folders. Like it's once you get the tenant, everything will be the same as you will get it on your on-premise. Only thing is it will be hosted on the UiPath cloud. Here only the orchestrator will be available on the cloud. Robots will be on your premises or on your cloud, like on your public cloud, private cloud, wherever you want to install. UiPath is providing only the orchestrator at this point. Right, it's not going to the next slide. Okay, sorry. So as we discussed about the deployment options, so this is the first option where we are trying to cover the high availability as well as the disaster recovery framework. So as you can, I think this screen is visible to everybody. It's a bit small, but I think it should be visible.
Yeah, it's
So,
readable, Ankit.
so this is covering basically high availability as well as your DR. So when I say high availability means you will have at least one data center where the full architecture should be highly available. Even if one node goes down, then it should not be like full environment goes down. Another option is the DR, where you should have two data centers, at least two data centers, I would say. First one will be the active and another one is the passive. So we have shown here only the active passive mode, but there is another mode, we call it active, where both the data centers will be working at the same time. If time allows, we'll try to cover that part as well. But for here, when I say high availability, that means not a single node. If like we have multiple components when we say the environment. We have orchestrator, we have storage where we are storing all the NuGet packages. We have SQL Server, we have, if you're using Elastic, we have Elasticsearch. So when I say high availability, that means each and every component should be highly available, be it orchestrator, be it database, be it Elasticsearch. So as soon as we start converting our single node architecture to the high availability architecture, we need to include some more things into the environment. So I'll start from the orchestrator. So as soon as we want to enable orchestrator as an highly available, so we have to include more nodes of the orchestrator. But if you have multiple nodes of the orchestrator, then you have to include HA solution into it, because in that case, we have to sync the cache of the orchestrator servers. So for that, we use the HA. This is again a UiPath offering, or you can use the Redis as well, but that is not supported by the UiPath. For that, you have to take care by your own. Definitely, you can integrate with the Redis, but not supported by UiPath. But if you go with HA, that is also supported by the UiPath. Again, if you are using Redis or HA, it should not be a single node. It should be at least 3 nodes. Otherwise, it will be a split mind problem, where both the nodes will be trying to be the master and they will not serve the orchestrator. So you should have at least 3 nodes. In case one nodes go down, 2 nodes can serve, so that in the meantime, you can develop the third node. Same with the orchestrator. Here you should have at least 2 nodes, at least 2 nodes. There are recommendations available on our website, how much nodes you should have depending upon the robot size, queue size, all those things are available. But again, it's not only the things, technical things which decide, okay, whether you should have the high availability or not. It's the business also which decides whether you should go to the high availability mode or in the single architecture mode. If you are in the high availability, if one node goes down, then other node will work. But if you have only the single orchestrator, then if that goes down, your full business is stopped now. So according to the business, you have to take a decision. Second option is, now you have made your orchestrator highly available, but you have the SQL server that is single instance. So again, if our SQL server fails, entire network, entire environment will fail. So for that, again, you have to have multiple SQL nodes as well. You can use always on from SQL server, or if you are using like AWS or Azure. So for that, you can have multiple options like multi-AZ databases, where if one zone goes down, it will be automatically shifted to the another zone. That kind of stuff you can use. Same with Elasticsearch. If you are using Elasticsearch to store the data, the log, it should not be a single node architecture again. It should be a multi-node architecture. And in case of Elasticsearch, when you say multi-node, then it will be a master node and data nodes. So definitely you should have 3 nodes, 1 master and 2 data nodes. So this is about the high availability. Again, when you want to, this is high availability, but everything is in one data center or in the one AG or something like that. So what you can do for DR, like in case this full data centers goes down, maybe due to like electricity got failed, network got failed or something like that, then you can have a passive data center where you have entire environment ready, but you do not need to put like high availability into it because it's that particular data center is meant only when you have any disaster in this particular in the active data center. So you can have minimal setup there, or if you want to have like exact replica, that you can do so. It's not restricted. But sometimes we say, okay, we are spending a lot on the infrastructure, so why can't we have two data centers running at the same time? This and this architecture, which is shown on the screen right now, is not capable to work in like in active mode, because as soon as we say active mode, there are a lot more things which we have to think about it. If time allows, I'll show you the architecture as well. Next is, this is basically when you are on the public cloud. So few things you can have PaaS as PaaS. When I say PaaS, that is platform as a service. So orchestrator is available on Azure, like as a PaaS service, where you can use the app service plan and you can host the orchestrator as a platform as a service. So you don't need to maintain the infrastructure in that case. That will be managed by the Azure, and you will get the orchestrator URL and you will work on that. In the same way, you can use SQL as well on the Azure, or if you are using AWS, you can use RDS instances for the SQL server. So both these two things can be PaaS, but if you want to install the Insights, Insights is not yet available as a PaaS solution. It is available as an IaaS solution only. So you have to provision your VMs and then only you can install the Insights. Insights is not available as we have for orchestrator options. If I talk about this architecture, so you can see you have the orchestrator here. This is installed as a PaaS. So that means we are using app service plan here. This is the Insights, again IaaS. So there's a VM on which we have installed the Insights. We need two databases here. One is this one is for orchestrator, and this one is for Insights. Insights also store the robot logs, job information, queue items information, a lot of things which gets imported from orchestrator database to Insights database. Then we have Azure Cache, again a Redis service provided by the Azure, which we need for high availability. If you have multi-node, you can have in like in app service as well, you can have multi-node architecture. For that, you need Azure Cache. You can integrate the CyberArk or Azure Vault. It's not necessary whether it's Azure or we both supports both basically. Again, here you can have like if you want to go with IaaS service on orchestrator, then you can use as an availability set, or you can use a scale set, so that if you want to scale depending upon the load, you can scale the orchestrator. But you have to keep things in mind that you have to copy a few settings from master node to the secondary node, that kind of things you have to take care. But for robots, it's very easily doable. But sometimes if you are using HD robots, then it's a bit complicated. It's not like you cannot use it, but it's a bit complicated because once you spin up new VM for the robots, you have to change some settings on the orchestrator as well. But if one robot, one VM, then it's very easy. You can use one machine template, and as soon as the robot machine will be spun up, it will be automatically connected to the orchestrator. So less complications. So what we have new things here.
We have a poll here.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Ankit, people will answer the poll.
Would it poll please? Can I read out?
Yeah. Does UiPath provide high availability feature for Orchestrator. The first option is default for on-prem and Automation Cloud. Second is not for on-prem. Third is only for Automation Cloud. Fourth is add-on on on-prem and default for Automation Cloud.
Well, Ankit, we are good in a time. I would like to go ahead and just showcase people how quickly you can go ahead and set up your orchestrator on Azure. And can you allow me to present for a minute?
Yeah, sure. Just let this poll finish and then I'll stop sharing.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So we have the results here. 61% people says it's an add-on for on-prem and default for Automation Cloud, which I would say yes, it's the right answer. It's not default for on-prem and Automation Cloud. For on-prem, you need an add-on because as I mentioned, you have to involve Redis or HA add-on. So it's not default on on-prem, but default for Automation Cloud, that is for sure. 13% people says only for Automation Cloud. It's not true because as I already mentioned, it's available for on-prem and Automation Cloud. I'm stop sharing. Udit, you can take the control.
Thank you. Do let me know once you can see my screen.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Great, excellent. Well, I'm sure people are now excited to see that how effective or how quickly I can go ahead and deploy UiPath Orchestrator on Microsoft Azure. Well, just a one caveat, we have 20.4, which is the recent release, but the image which is available, which is the stable one, which is available on Azure Marketplace is 19.10. Okay, so I just logged into my Microsoft Azure subscription and here I go ahead and type UiPath. Well, the moment I type UiPath, I can see that UiPath Orchestrator is reflecting here. Click on it. You get a brief information about what this product is all about. It's being provided by UiPath. It's mentioned by Microsoft that that's their preferred solution. You simply have to hit on the button, click Create, and you move fast to set up your orchestrator. Well, if you want to set up your orchestrator as a PaaS offering or an IaaS offering, you have both the option available, which Ankit was talking about, but showing you how effective it is to set up a PaaS environment on Azure as quick as possible in less than 5 minutes. Well, yes, you can set up your orchestrator on Azure in less than 5 minutes. Reason being, the orchestrator image is pre-uploaded, pre-built and configured. You simply have to go ahead and provide the information which is related to the URLs, the configuration, the passwords, and you are good to go. So let's quickly pick it up and just start doing it over the fly and see what happens. I picked up my resource group and I have a region choice which I want to host for. So let's say I am picking up a location which is South India. Well, picking up a South India in India is the most economy option, and that's the reason I have opted for South India, though you have other option available in India, which is Central and West. So I'm picking up a South India. So I know my data center will be either in Chennai or nearby to that location. I simply go ahead and put next. I go ahead and give my orchestrator name. Well, this is space, which should be simple, easy for you, which you can remember, and always handy with. As I told you that we have 19.10 available, though we have a 20.4, which is a stable version, and we have 20.10 coming up shortly, but we have on Azure ready image available of 19.10. If you want to go ahead and set up 20.4, you will not be able to use this feature capability, which I am just showing right away to you. You have to set up that app services independently, though I can guide if I have a time remain in my demonstration for you guys. So I'm picking up a 19.10. Well, here is the good part. While you are setting, as Ankit said, in an app service, you can start with one and you can start with more than one instance also. The moment I say I need one instance, I am talking about without high availability. And the moment I say I need more than one instance, it can be two. What we have mentioned here is that you can have to go for a 10 app service instance. That means you can create 10 different versions of an orchestrator at the same time. So I am opting for a 2, which is a standard minimum recommendation that when you are looking for a high availability in your infrastructure, you should go for it. What kind of an orchestrator you want to set it up, whether you want to set up a orchestrator for a small, medium, and large. Well, one of our question in the poll was that I want to go ahead because my customer is now scaling and he was on a standalone. Now he wants to move to the, he's adopting more bots. So probably it's a time for him to go ahead and upgrade to the high availability environment, multi-node environment. But I will go ahead and play around on the small, medium, and a large instance while demonstrating to you. Well, the moment I move to my HAA, you have a lot of the information which you have to fill up. But if I go ahead and play around and say that I just need one instance, you can see that that HAA option is now become an optional. That with the one instance, I can also create HAA, but that's not a practical way to do it. If you want to go ahead and create a high available environment, you should have at least minimum 2 instances. Well, still, if you want to go for it, you can simply click yes. Go ahead, create your login. I'm just going a demonstration, so you will can see that username which I'm creating. Well, I am making a mistake. Let me just go ahead and make a change. Well, you guys can simply go ahead and ignore this at this point for time. I will help you out on that. You require to go ahead and configure your HAA admin. You have to give a password, confirm password, high availability add-on license. That's the add-on license which we was talking about, that you need to procure it from UiPath via direct UiPath or through UiPath partners, and you should have that key. Once you have that, then you can go ahead and work on it. But let me go ahead and do some specific things for you, and then I show you other things. You go ahead and define your Azure SQL. Well, we are going with the Azure SQL. That means I am going ahead as an Azure SQL service. I'm not setting up an infrastructure. And when I'm not setting an infrastructure, I don't have to take care of a high availability. When Azure SQL comes, that comes with the high availability with a very good SLA of a 99.9 or something like that. At the end, I can go ahead and review my configurations. Well, at this point of a time, the validation will fail because I have left a lot of things unfilled. But the moment I will fill it up, it will give me a green mark here that the validation is complete. And the validation is complete that it can create a button for me which says that go ahead and create your orchestrator on the Azure. That's it. And you will see your VMs are getting spin up and you will be all set to run your Azure orchestrator. So the purpose here for showcasing of this is you can play around with your own subscription, search for UiPath Orchestrator and find the right option. Go ahead, deploy it, do your hand dirty and see how it works. Over to you, Ankit.
Okay, so there is an answer which I was answering actually. So Mukesh, in this scenario which Udit was showing, I'm audible?
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay. So in the scenario which Udit was showing, so the for orchestrator license you have to pay to the UiPath, and the instances or the hardware which will be used behind the scene, you have to pay to the Azure for that. So
That's correct, Ankit. It's a customer subscription.
yeah,
You are going ahead and deploying it in your Azure subscription, your AWS subscription, your GCP subscription.
yes,
So your orchestrator license is only to go ahead and give the flavor to that, that your orchestrator is pre-configured, pre-deployed as an image, which you are using it while setting it up on your infrastructure. So Azure cost, AWS cost, GCP cost will be beared by customer slash partner. And the other question which was there on the screen is the high availability component. Yes, the high availability component is not a Windows component. The HAA component, which is a which is slash HAA slash Redis component, it's it's a Linux based. So CentOS.
yeah, let me explain this. So basically HA is a software which will work on best on basically Linux servers. So I will not say it's a Red Hat HAA. It's a HAA based on Redis, but it works on the Linux, whether it's the Red Hat. We have a set of instructions available on our documentation. You can have a look. What are the OS supported and all. So I think Udit, let me explain this new and improved things, and then we'll take the questions. Maybe you can write down somewhere, and then we'll try to answer. So these are the things which come up in 19.10. So there is a very long ask for long running processes, which we workflows, I would say, where like suppose you have to process an invoice, and after a certain amount, you need to take approval from someone, and then only you can process. So you have to stop the process and then restart it again. So these capabilities are now available in the orchestrator. You can start the process whenever there is a rule met for the validation or for approval. You can create a task for that particular user and you can send a mail, okay, there's a task available in the orchestrator. As soon as they validate it, orchestrator will automatically start another robot. It's not necessarily the same robot. Orchestrator can use any available robot for that. Automatic robot provisioning, I think we have already discussed. You have to just provision your AD groups, and then it will automatically provision the users for you. Localized languages, SLAs, we have already covered. Pluggable credential stores, yes. Credential stores like CyberArk or Azure Key Vault. These kind of things you can configure for your tenants. We have hierarchical modern folders. So we have introduced modern folders here, and modern folders are basically, you can have hierarchies of the modern folder as you have in the Windows, but these are not folders as a Windows folders. These are the logical separations on the data which we put on within the orchestrator. Package Explorer, yes, now you can explore your packages like for code review and these kind of stuff. So you can directly have a look on your packages. What are the versions of dependencies? What are the things are going on? Sorry, that kind of stuff you can directly see from the orchestrator itself. You don't need to open the package in a studio and then have a look on it. Active Directory integration, I've already mentioned. Yes, now there is an option for instance license update and activation. There is an option on the orchestrator GUI from where you can directly click on activate online or update. And if your orchestrator is connected to the internet, then it can directly connect to the license server of the UI path and it can update your license. Or if it's a reactivation, it can reactivate. So Key Vault, I think we have already discussed. What has been improved? Process editing with running and pending jobs. Yes, this is quite possible. Now we have support for 7x versions of Elasticsearch. Now you can define global values for assets. This is useful when you are defining any defining assets values per robot. But now from 19.10, you can define a global value if any robot is connecting and asking for that particular value, and there is nothing defined for that for robot, then the global value will be used. Queue enhancement, yes. Now triggers, enforce the schema options, editing and cloning. Now you can define the schema for your queues. So if you want to enforce any governance or something like that on the queue itself, then you can define the schemas. And once anybody is adding any data to the queue, it will be validated first with the schema. Same with the output. Now you can automatically start an unattended automation as well, but that will be again from the user perspective. It's not from the orchestrator. You can automatically download attended automation. Yes, it will be automatically downloaded on the user tray and it will start working. Not start working automatically. You can set the reminders. On the basis of that reminders, it can be executed. You can restart the job. Like if any job got failed, then you can restart the job and it will use that particular job only. It will not use another job. You can have multiple non-working calendars. So you can give some holidays to your robots as well now. So a few new supports for Chrome and Firefox. I don't know why it is not working properly. Yep. So a few things which we introduced in 20.4. So now you can have unattended robots in modern folders. You can have a headless background process, multiple processes in the same Windows session. So this is something where you are using the background process, then you can run multiple processes with the same machine, within the same machine basically. There is a one thing is I think not mentioned here. There is a very good feature in 20.4, but it's still experimental. We call it picture in picture, where like if it's a foreground process and you want to work simultaneously with the robot, then you can use that particular feature and there is a new session or window will be created on your screen and the robot will execute within that particular screen and the keyboard and mouse will be free for you to work. Storage bucket, I think we have already discussed. Yes, there is a new service which we introduced with the 20.4, that is identity server. Why we introduced this? Basically now we have separated the identity management from the orchestrator. Whatever, like if you are integrating with AD, you can directly configure it on an identity server. That kind of stuff you can do. Even if you have some other servers, you can use that identity servers to integrate with, and you can validate it from directly from the identity server. One more feature is personal workspace I would like to discuss. Now, if you are trying something and you want to test it, then you can publish something into your personal workspace. It will not be visible to the admins to make it as a process. The particular process will be available within your personal workspace only. Yeah, you can define process display names. We have action centers. Like if you remember, we discussed in 19.10 long running workflow. So it is called now action center, where you can create tasks and it supports the long running workflow as well. Now you can use it for document validation as well. If you are processing any documents, then you can use this feature for validation as well. You can customize your color, uh, the upper bar of the orchestrator and the logos as well. We have start job button on triggers and process pages. We have upgrade failure rollback for database changes, modern folders, queue execution targets. So there are a lot of improvements in 20.4. We are in time, I think. Yes. This is the roadmap. So ideally, as if we go by the plan, then there is a new set of GUIs coming up with the orchestrator in 20.10. So you will feel a new, altogether new GUI for the orchestrator. Now we are more focusing on the modern folders and we are enhancing the features within the modern folders. So you will have a better management of the folders in the 20.10, I would say. We will have decoupling. Now we are trying to make more things in the modern folders in place of classical folders. Now you can have assets per user in place of per robots. You can have credentials log, you can have classical robot disable, but these are roadmap. I cannot guarantee that all the things will be available in the 20.10. Depending on the timelines and the feature readiness will decide when we will release 20.10. Personal workspace, as I discussed. So till now, you can't do so much with the personal workspace, but now we are enhancing it so that you can do something little more with the personal workspace. Governance features, I think we haven't covered in 20.4, but there is a very good feature. We call it governance. You can enforce some governance on the developers. Like for before publishing anything to the orchestrator, you can enforce them to run the workflow analyzer. That kind of things you can put on within the governance file. It's not the only option. There are a lot of options which you can enforce to the developers.
Well,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Ankit. Good. We just want to quickly go ahead and open the question and answer. But while you are
Yes.
opening, answering, unmute yourself and ask for a question. And here is the last poll for the day for you. Igor, we have one raise of hand. Can you unmute and allow him to speak?
Yeah. Anyone can unmute now.
Yeah, hi Ankit and Udit. So Udit just showed how we can get started with setting up of orchestrator from the Azure, right, through market space. And we saw that for a high availability, we need to give the license there and then. But what about the orchestrator license? So once we have deployed the orchestrator as a service on Azure, then we need to give the licensing of Azure, orchestrator.
Yes. Once the orchestrator is up and running, then you have to apply the orchestrator key. Again, two options. Either you can apply on the host tenant or you can go with the tenant-wise licensing, but we recommend to you go to the host tenant and then apply the license key.
Okay, thanks.
Ankit, this is Sudev. So actually, I have one doubt. So what is the main use of using like we are using orchestrator in cloud and we are using it in local server like that. So
Yes.
why we are actually here? I can understand that we have used that because of disaster management and so many things. But
Mhm.
what is the advantage and we are spending more money on that on the cloud platform. So could you please explain the same?
It's not true that you are spending much extra money on cloud. If you
Mm-hmm.
compare, I think it will be equalized with your on-premise versus your cloud. So I would not go into this discussion, but
Can simply quickly give some perspective here. Probably my answers will be not 100% answer to your question. The first benefit I see is sometime when organizations start, they start with a small volume of robots and then they organically grow in the journey of 1 year, 18 months, 2 years. So when you are on a cloud, you can start with the small size of a virtual machines and get started, whether it's IaaS or a PaaS, and then you can scale real time. You don't have to go through with all the process of approval and everything. Well, that's the beauty. What I see is start small, grow with the growth of your business and with the ROIs you are generating for the business. That's one side which I see it is. Well, you can't go ahead and set up a PaaS environment on your on-prem infrastructure, kind of a services and the SLA what Microsoft is giving, or AWS is giving, or GCP is giving. That is always a debatable topic to go ahead and achieve it within the local management slash internal infrastructure setup. That's the second thing of it. Sometime when the COE is setting it up, they are not having infrastructure team with them. They are core team, which is a business team, and the RPA team. They are not having the expertise on the infrastructure, and they depend on going on a cloud is the easy path for them. Likewise, I was showing it to you, setting up an orchestrator in a 5 minute and then running it. And they also want to be a hassle free from the mind of, hey, I don't want to go ahead and set up backups, recoveries, and the DRs. I want to be rely on Azure or AWS to do those job for me. So definitely from a cost perspective, well, there are a way where we can look into it. Some of the math says that it's practically a benefit to run it on a cloud. Some of the maths talk about it, hey, this is actually a costly solution, but depend on a business to business use case, the right option can be for there. And that's a reason we are supporting all of them. You can deploy it on your on-prem infrastructure. You can deploy it on a private cloud, which can be Airtel in India or Reliance in India or any of these partners. And the public clouds are very well known to everybody: AWS, GCP, IBM Cloud, or Azure. Hope this answer.
Yes, yes.
so I would like to take a few questions which are in the chat window. So I think you are already answered. So unattended robots are also available. Says no, at this point, no, but we have planned for like I think Udit already answered for 2021 that you should have robots for SaaS offering as well. So for the Nidhi questions, I think Udit already answered, but Nidhi, you can find the documentation on docs.uipath.com. We have, as I mentioned during the presentation, we have pluggable options. You can define your plugins, and you should be able to use other IAM vendors as well. But we haven't tested it. We have tested with our Azure Vault and CyberArk and AWS.
Okay, this is what the question was, Ankit. I mean, is it possible to get the documentation related to Saviynt, SailPoint, or any other IAM tool apart from CyberArk? Because I can see, yeah, there's a documentation related to CyberArk, but I just wanted to try the other IAM tools as well.
So that's why I'm mentioning there is a documentation that how you can configure the other IAM vendors or basically any IAM vendors. So
Okay.
maybe I'm not sure how to use the SailPoint. I've never used it, but I'll
Okay.
try to find, but maybe that documentation can help you that how you can configure within the orchestrator.
Okay,
So a
let
few
me
things
check
you
it.
have to configure in the web.config and then it will be the GUI.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. I'll check.
So question is
Ankit,
from Krish.
yeah, Ankit,
Yes,
one
yeah,
more
please.
question. What is the use of insights, UiPath Insights?
Yeah,
Actually,
Insights is an analytics tool. Like when you need some analytics on the data which you processed or from the robot logs or on the queue items, on the jobs, then you use the Insights. Like you have Elasticsearch or Kibana, Splunk, Power BI, Tableau. So these are all analytics tools. So Insights is same as analytics tools. So you can have, I think we have 5 dashboards which are out of the box as soon as you install the Insights. So you can get in 20.4, you can get the license view, you will get the robots view, you will get the process view, you will get the business ROI automatically calculated for you. So these are the basically insights.
so you mean like so we use that analytical tool to analyze our robot performance, how it is giving the return on investment and how it is working, like that kind of things, right?
Yeah, analytics is used to like meant for that only. You
Yeah.
did something and now you want to analyze it.
Yep.
So we have one more question from Kishore. What is the advantage of UiPath Automation Cloud compared to Azure Orchestrator Service? Yes, so when I say UiPath Automation Cloud, you do not need to worry about the infrastructure. In Azure, you have to configure, as Uday showed you, you have to configure a few things. But if you go with the UiPath Automation Cloud, you have to just think about your business. UiPath will configure everything for you. You have to only the provision. You just provision the robots to the cloud and start working. Question from Rohit at queue item. Guys, please give me a moment. Let me just finish this questions, whatever we have in chat window, and then we'll take up. Is this issue add queue item operation timed out resolved in new version? I don't think so that it's an issue. Most of the time it happens because of the connectivity. When you are trying to add queue items, I haven't seen with any customer. I'm working with a lot of customers which are constantly getting this data. It's happened most of the time if you have your SQL Server which has very less capacity or it's very overloaded. You have a lot of logs and queue items. You haven't maintained the SQL Server database. I have seen this kind of scenarios at that time only. Can we have high density robots in Azure? Yes, but for that you have to configure, like I think you have to provision the VMs and then you can have high density robots. That is quite possible. What is the advantage of UiPath? I think we have already answered. Mukesh, yes, we can have. Insight custom, so does it use Elasticsearch? Okay, Insights is UiPath offering. It's not using Elasticsearch, Kibana, or Splunk. It's our own software which use as a like SQL Server as a backend, and we have defined our own dashboards. So now, guys, please unmute yourself and ask the questions. We have finished from chat.
Hi, my name is Vinod. So currently we have a orchestrator set up as an Azure app service. And we have done some research on a cloud orchestrator.
Yes, Vinod, we can hear you. Go ahead.
The cloud service. And we have done some research on cloud service.
When
And
you say cloud service means?
orchestrator as a cloud service.
From UiPath
Yes.
Cloud. Okay.
Yes, yes. So, but we see some hurdles where, I mean, getting the logs from the robots, the historical logs of the robots.
Okay.
I mean, orchestrator integration with Okta.
Okay.
Yeah, actually that feature is in the roadmap where you can define your endpoints for the robot logs with UiPath Automation Cloud. At this point, it's not available, but where you can define your own paths.
No, then Ankit, just want to add that did you try it on a community edition, the logs, or you tried with the enterprise trial of Automation Cloud?
Enterprise trial.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and one more question is like, while you shown up on the setup, like IaaS setup and the PaaS setup. So IaaS is something like it is asking for a virtual machine. I mean, in the backend, it will provision a virtual machine.
That's
yeah,
correct.
IaaS basically when you are getting infrastructure as a service, like you are getting from any cloud vendor. So you are getting VMs, load balancers, networking, everything is as a service for you. You are not procuring any hardware or anything. You are just getting all the infrastructure ready for you. So it is called infrastructure as a service. When I say PaaS, like Azure App Service, they are managing the infrastructure. They are giving you the platform as a service now. So Orchestrator is available as a platform for you.
Okay. And what about the database? Database is again the SQL Server service from Azure, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, both options are available. You can go for IaaS solution. You can go for PaaS solutions. Both options are available.
Well, when my recommendation says if you are setting up a web app as a PaaS, you should go for Azure SQL, which is a PaaS.
Yeah.
Because no point when you are thinking about a high availability, you are thinking about backup recovery and load balancing, and you are doing it on a web instance, which is an orchestrator, and you don't have that on a SQL, it's not a foolproof solution. So recommendations are when you are going the PaaS offering, if you are opting for a web apps, the best recommended option is you should go with the SQL as a service, which is Azure SQL. Similar kind of things are available from AWS and the others also. And equivalent to AWS, when we are calling on Azure App Services, over there you have Beanstalk, AWS gives, and that's equivalent to the app service of this. And when you are going for a SQL, Azure gives Azure SQL, they give SQL RDS service. So you can use any of the one, and that's recommended. And the first question which was talking about related to the infrastructure, when you are opting in this template, which is provided by UiPath, and that's what I was filling it.
Just have a look on the screen I've just shared.
Yeah.
So you can have Azure SQL, which is a PaaS service, and this is the orchestrator. This is again a PaaS service here. So recommended definitely Azure SQL because it's highly available, and Azure is managing all the backups and this kind of stuff. You do not need to worry about it.
Yes.
Definitely, if you get within an organization with the enterprise architect team, they always prefer SaaS, then PaaS, then IaaS. So they have this hierarchy basically.
Okay.
Hi Ankit, this is Mukesh. I have a question. So we have high density robot setups, and so when we talk about the DR, disaster recovery. So we have a disaster recovery in terms of machines. So whenever a machine goes down, somebody has to go to the orchestrator and switch the robots to the new machine, right? So in the new features which you were showing, that was mentioned that automatic restart of the robot. So is that the same thing which I'm talking about?
Automatic restart?
So in the new features, right? So what's new in the new releases? Somewhere it was mentioned that the start.
It's not restart. It's auto provisioning.
Okay.
If you are going with the machine templates and AD groups, then you can automatically provision the robots. So like in your scenario, you can have a backup machine, but definitely if it's an like if it's an hardware or whether it's a IaaS or you have the on-premise, you have to switch on that particular machine.
Yeah, so
that is again manual. So we can't do anything on that part, but robot provisioning can be handled.
Okay, and what happens when a robot goes down? Let's say the robot password expired, the CyberArk password expired for the main robot. So can we do something so that the robot flipping also happens? Means the machine is okay, but the robot has expired. Means the
robot password is expired.
Robot password has expired in between of the job. Yeah.
Ideally, when you have robot username and password, these should be service username passwords basically,
Correct. Yeah.
and their password should never expire. This is a
Okay.
best practices. You can
Mhm.
find it on our documentation.
Okay. Yeah.
And Mukesh, can I just answer the first part of a question? You
Yeah,
were
sure.
talking about your virtual machine get killed for
Yeah.
some reason, and
Yeah.
when your jobs are not getting done, and you need to spin the virtual machine manually. If
Yeah.
you're doing it on an on-prem, and if you are behind the virtual environment, well,
Yeah.
I suggest you should go and open up a UiPath marketplace and
Okay.
search for an activity pack, which is called as the IT automation activities,
Mm-hmm.
where we have gone ahead and provided you activities where you can run these to create virtual machines on-prem, on Azure, on AWS, and multiple other cloud providers.
Okay.
So while you are doing it manually and then making your the machine template running on that virtual machine, by
Mm-hmm.
using IT automation activity, you can go ahead and do that also. So
Yep,
that
that's
hassle
quite
on
possible.
dependency on an infrastructure guy will goes off. The only thing is you should have a permission available that you can create new virtual machine if my machine is a faulty / not available. Use
Okay.
the IT automation activity pack. That's a brilliant one. In fact, that's our next month topic, which we are covering. So probably keep watching our invite and go for it. We are explaining that next month.
Yeah. So exactly
There is
this is
another
what I was.
option.
Yeah.
There is another option here. You can see UiPath robot skill set. So on Azure, there is an option of skill set where you can provision the machines as soon as, like if you have auto scaling groups defined, then as soon as any robot machine goes down, another machine will automatically spin up for you. Same is with AWS. So they also have this kind of functionality
Mm-hmm.
where as soon as the machine goes down, they just keep a watch. Okay, I should have 10 machines running at the same time. So as soon as 1 or 2 machines goes down, they automatically spin up the new VMs for you.
Ping any one of us, we will guide you.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Udit and Ankit. Yeah,
Any
that
one of us.
answers. Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone. We still have 40 people on the call, and I appreciate everybody who is hearing it out. May not have asked a question, but I assume the session was interesting and helpful for everyone's knowledge. We look forward to thank Vibhor and Sheetal, who are keen contributor who do the back-end work for us and help us setting it up and running the show, promoting the channel, and inviting you guys. Well, thank you, Vibhor and Sheetal, and I open Vibhor and Sheetal to speak about if they have to say something.
Yeah, one thing I would say that, we have a developer conference coming up on 2nd and 3rd. So in case you have not registered yet, please register for that. It's going to be a wonderful 2 days where you will find a lot of new updates and feedback, insights. Yeah, so don't miss for that.
You stole my line, Vibhor. So I think indeed it was very nice session, and I would request everyone to share their feedbacks about how was this session or what else they would like to hear about more. So that's all from my side. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ankit.
Thanks, Ankit.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think we still have time if anybody has any questions.
Yep.
So one question from my side is like, still the orchestrator installation has a scripts methodology to install, or it's completely moved to marketplace?
So you're talking about Azure?
You have both.
Yes. So you're currently supporting the both. The
For
oncoming
Azure,
version.
we have PowerShell scripts available, which you So we have a scripts available, PowerShell scripts available, and we have marketplace application. But so you can use both. Like Udit mentioned, when we publish a new version, it takes some time to be available on as an app service directly, because there is a security parameter from Microsoft itself, which we have to process and pass after the release of the software. So 20.4 is still in that particular process. So as soon as that will pass, you can directly use from app marketplace, but still right now you can use PowerShell script to use 20.4 as an app service.
Thanks.
Scripts are available on our
Documentation is up to date. You can check on docs.uipath.com. You will see how you can go ahead and use PowerShell to set up on Azure, and there's a guide available for AWS also. Unfortunately, for GCP IBM, we have not published the guide, but if you refer the AWS Azure guides, you can simply go ahead and understand how it's done, and you can set it up over there. What I demonstrated is an ARM template pre-filled by UiPath and being created on a marketplace, so that you can simply go ahead and run that in. There is nothing else. So while I was filling up it, I was simply going ahead and providing inputs to an ARM template.
Yeah, Vibhor, actually, I would request you to please share the details about UiPath Developer Conference in chat.
Okay, I will do that.
Vibhor, please go ahead and put that URL here itself.
Yeah, I just shared the details.
Thanks, Vibhor.
And Udit,
Thank you, everyone.
Vinod had one question. He was asking me on the LinkedIn that he wants to create a video on UiPath Orchestrator to do to show multi-node setup for the community. How we can do that? Because usually
get your question.
he wants to create a video, maybe YouTube video, to show community how to do UiPath Orchestrator, this thing multi-node setup.
Okay, so
right.
I think what you can do. Let me just show you. So you can start from this. I don't think so you will be able to show it in practical because it takes quite time and it will be a very lengthy video.
Yes, Ankit, I'm done with the single node one. But since single node is a
complete this, please.
Yeah, okay.
Let me just complete this, please. So what you can do, you can first discuss this single node architecture, and then you can introduce the high availability in this way, and then you can explain that what are the benefits and what is the process to do it. But if you want to do it in practical way, then I think you have to split it into multiple videos, because the multiple things which you have to configure for high availability, like orchestrator nodes, you have to introduce a load balancer, you have to introduce high availability like HA add-ons, you have to introduce SQL Server multiple groups, availability groups, you have to involve Elasticsearch, or if you're using Insights, then again you have to provision multiple databases for Insights. So I think it will be a quite lengthy video. So, but on explaining things, you can do it.
Yeah, Vinod.
Okay. Thank you for the inputs. But I'm just wondering about how can I show the people if one robot got down. I mean, if one robot was unavailable and the other robot is available to run the process. So this is what the end goal should be.
So I think it's a default feature. If one robot is not available and another robot is available, then orchestrator automatically picks up that robot.
Yeah, so we need to have some trial license kind of thing, right? So
you need the trial license. So
yes.
For platform.uipath.com, the trial is already available. And for other things, I think Udit can answer better than me.
I'm just simply guiding, reach out to me, write an email / reach out to me over a LinkedIn. I will pick it up.
Yeah, thanks, Udit.
Any questions from anyone?
Okay, if we are good, then we have a good opportunity to network people. Feel free if you have anything apart from the topic of the day. You have some questions, you want to ask for it, you need some guidance. Maybe the guidance about the work you are doing it, the problem you are trying to solve within your organization with the business. You have a use case you want to hear it about. Feel free to go ahead and openly